What is going on, folks? Welcome to Create and Destroy. I'm your host, Dan Donnarumma. This is episode number 2, and I'm very excited about today's episode. My guest for you is Tim Vetter of the Voyages of Tim Vetter podcast. That's a show that I really enjoy listening to, and it may be because Tim and I have known each other since our senior year of high school, so I might be slightly biased, but yeah, it's an excellent show, and I really enjoy listening to it. Tim's podcast will typically have on individuals whose lives revolve around traveling, food, or individuals that are just doing really unique and cool things and creating really unique and cool things. In the past, he's had on Ramya Ramana, Ben Ayers, Andrea Huynh, Jeff Eaton of Modern Life is War, Jackson Groves, as well as Rolf Potts. And Rolf Potts is the author of Vagabonding, which was a very important and inspirational book in terms of the traveling that I've done. And when Tim texted me and said, "Hey, Dan, I'm going to have Rolf on the show," I was so damn excited, so damn giddy about that. And when the episode was released, it definitely did not disappoint. It was a fantastic episode. So as I said, his show will generally have on some really great people, and Tim's way of interviewing folks and the topics that he discusses with them usually lead to very thought-provoking conversations. And after an episode, because I typically will listen to Tim's show with Danielle, she and I will have deep and introspective conversations where we dissect what we just listened to. And I love that. I love having those kinds of conversations with individuals, especially with Danielle. The other thing that I really love about Tim's show is something that I also hate about his show, is because of the fact that he has on individuals that are talking about their travels and places that they've gone to. It generally makes me want to drop whatever the hell it is that I'm doing and just travel the world. So I love that his show motivates me to want to travel and ignites that spark in me. But I also hate it because I can't just freaking drop what I'm doing and travel the world whenever the hell I want to. But I love that it does get me motivated to want to continue to travel. So in our conversation, Tim and I, we discussed what made Tim want to start his own podcast and what that was like for him creating a show from scratch, what it's like producing an episode and getting on guests that he thinks is interesting, as well as guests that he thinks other people will find interesting. We also talked about his traveling and some of the really cool places that he's gotten to go to, as well as some of his upcoming travel plans, because he does have some really exciting stuff coming down the pipe. I'm really excited that the first interview that I get to share with everyone for Create and Destroy is with my good buddy, Tim. As I mentioned, we've known each other for a very long time. This was really fun to sit down with him and to do this interview. I surprisingly was a little bit nervous to sit down with Tim because this was my first interview, and I was so worried that I was going to screw things up and that my gear was going to malfunction or something was going to go wrong. But overall, I think it went pretty well. All right, folks, here is my conversation with Tim Vetter. I hope you enjoy. All right, Timbo. So, dude, when I was putting everything together, do you know what I realized?
What did you realize?
We've been friends for almost 15 years. 15 years this fall.
Yeah, that is crazy. I think you and I are both pretty different than we were when we met.
Seriously, do you remember? Because I remember you saw me walking in the halls of Smithtown High wearing some band shirt. Do you remember what shirt it was?
Oh, God. No, I think I saw you, and then we had seen you at a show.
It was in Ronkonkoma, I think. It was like, do you remember that venue? It was like a Legion Hall or VFW.
We've actually, surprisingly, we talked about this on my podcast once, but that was a Hungarian Hall.
Yes, that's right. That's the name of it.
And I think actually Big Tim, or the first Big Tim, saw you and was like, oh, that guy goes to our school.
Yes, because I remember you guys were hanging out at a table for TYM's distro, and I went up, and then we just started talking.
Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah. And then from there, of course, we went to college together, and then I started working with you and your dad. Next thing you know, we are playing catch in a podiatrist's office with a latex foot.
Yeah, we used to get up at like 6 a.m. Maybe I shouldn't say all this, but sit in the back of like on the floor of the truck.
Yes, dude.
Drive into Manhattan, break apart basements and drywall.
So wow. This is going to sound corny, but I remember that's when I was like, this dude's my man. Because when we would sit in the back of that van, we would have awesome conversations.
Yeah.
That I feel like is so typical of what our friendship has become. And I remember going home one night after work and being like, this dude's my boy, man. I love hanging out with him.
Yeah, I mean, this is why this is cool. We've been talking about this for a while, and you came on my podcast. But we always have these types of conversations, like you, me, Derek, and it's the type of stuff that I like to listen to on podcasts. So it's like, we should start recording this stuff.
Seriously. So for those of you that don't know you and know what you do, who paint that picture for us. Who are you? What is it that you do?
I knew you were going to ask this. First of all, I want to qualify the entire episode and say, when we start talking about polar ends of things, like favorite place and thing like that, I am awful at finding my most liked and disliked things. And so it's a very long roundabout way to say, I don't know, who am I? If someone said, what do you do? I guess, for work, I'm an educator in taken different forms over the years, but I like to learn and experience things. And the way that I found to do that best is through travel. And so I am a traveler and a learner, first and foremost, I think.
Yeah, I would say that's a pretty good description. That's always been one of my favorite things about you, is that you are definitely a learner. You've always been someone that I could learn from as well. And I think that plays well as you being an educator, because you're definitely someone that is... You're a smart son of a bitch, basically.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
First of all, it is very strange being on the other side
I'm sure,
of the microphone.
man. I'm sure.
But yeah, I mean, thanks. That's a sweet thing to say. So,
a traveler, an educator, and also a podcaster. You have your own show.
Yes, I have my own show. So first of all, it's an honor to be on yours. And
thank you very much, man.
To be your first episode.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you on here, dude.
I have a podcast in which I like to talk about travel, and then meet people while traveling or when at home that I think are doing interesting things. And so I've had, authors, musicians, travelers, genocide survivors, war veterans, all sorts of interesting people. It's been amazing.
Yeah, I love, and we'll get more into this, but one of the things I do love about your podcast is you really do a good job of bringing on a diverse number of individuals that have very unique backgrounds, very unique stories, and really make for entertaining listening. And that's one of the things I do really love about your podcast.
Well, thank you. It's partly that's by choice and partly that's necessity. Mm-hmm. I reach out to, at least in the beginning, probably 5 times as many people who've actually been on the podcast. Mm-hmm. So who you see are people who have said yes. And just luckily that's been from a broad range of interests and lifestyles and things like that.
So how many, when you first started out, how many people would you say you were reaching out to try to get onto the show?
It's really been amazing. I strategized it so that I had some cool travel stories that I recorded episodes on. And luckily people like you and Derek and my friend Kevin, my friends who do cool things, were nice enough to be my first few episodes. But I mean, tons, ranging from people doing cool things I saw on Instagram to Anthony Bourdain. Luckily, almost everybody that I really, really wanted to come on has come on, which has been incredible and
that's awesome.
Weird. But yeah, a lot, to answer your question again in a long way, a lot. But that's humbling. And, in the beginning, why would people? They don't know who I am.
I feel like it's par for the course, right?
Yeah. I mean, I have no credibility when they don't know who I am, and I don't come from media or anything like that. But I've been able to establish some credibility now by having a lot of people on. We're on 56 episodes. So, yeah, it's been awesome.
So now, when did you first get the idea to start a podcast?
I think I've always wanted to do something creative and never really followed through or was afraid. So I've been listening to podcasts for a while, maybe 5-6 years. And I was feeling kind of bogged down with work and was thinking I was caught in a bit of a rut doing the same thing all the time. And I had all these ideas and I thought I could have some interesting conversations and put some cool energy out into the world. And I just did it, man. It's been the theme on my podcast is like take the first step and take the plunge kind of. And yeah.
That has absolutely been a recurring theme in a lot of the interviews that you do that I love. It's something that we've talked about before, that finding that impetus to just make things happen, right? Because if you're not going to make it happen, who the hell's going to?
Totally. I mean, the first thing is like nothing's going to happen if you're sitting on the couch in your apartment. I want to be careful about telling people just to do it if they don't have a plan or they're not being smart about it, because things can go wrong in life, right? And things do go wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm jumping too far ahead, so just stop me if I am.
No, this is fine.
I read an article recently. There's a blogger that I follow, and her name or her tag is P.S. I'm on my way. Her name is Trisha, and she did what I'm trying to do. Like, she gave up a career and a job to travel the world, and she's been quite successful at it. I'm not a travel blogger, right? I just do a podcast. So I don't really have it in my mind that I'm doing this as a career move. But she made it successful. But she just had a post, a really important blog post, I think, that said, I can pull it up, but something to the effect of like, years ago I had told you to give up your job to travel, and now I'm telling you not to.
Whoa.
And it was about all of the things that could potentially go wrong.
Wow.
And like, the first thing she wrote was like, you need money because you can't do this without some money. But I think I've been able to, over like 9 years of career type of jobs, been able to set up my life in a way to where I'll be okay if things go wrong. But yeah, I think you need to be aware of that when you do take the plunge. But take the plunge.
Yeah. Let's come back to that, because I do want to talk about the podcast, and I definitely want to talk about travel. So let's table that for a second.
Okay.
When you were starting the podcast, right? When you were first brainstorming ideas, the theme of your podcast, like you said, it centers around traveling. It centers around unique individuals. Was that the only idea that you had, or were there other ideas that came to fruition and popped into your head that you thought might have been worth exploring?
Yeah, it's funny because I've used travel as the thing, like, well, what makes me interesting, right? For those early episodes, why would somebody want to listen to me? And I think I have some cool, exciting stories to put out there, and I think we did do that. But yeah, ultimately, I'm meeting cool people when I'm out there in the world doing cool things, and we're having these conversations that I think other people would enjoy. I would think you would enjoy. It's the type of stuff that we talk about.
Yeah.
That I think are beneficial to people. And so that's really it, is to put those conversations that I'm having with people anyway, but to put them out into the ether, because I think people might enjoy it or people might learn from it. And just because I love it. I mean, selfishly, this podcast is also for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So was there ever any hesitancy towards starting your podcast?
Yeah, there's a lot of things. I was an administrator in a school, so I was an assistant principal, and so you'll see, like, there was really, on my end, there was really no swearing. There are certainly stories and things that I've experienced while on the road that would be very entertaining to people that I didn't want to put out there because, one, I had this, I was the face of a school, kind of. People would be affected if I did and said something very embarrassing. I've also been pretty cautious about being real purposeful about what I say, without proper context, things can be misconstrued. I now have, for the first time ever, like a real digital footprint where you can Google me and boom, there I am.
Yeah.
Which is weird. And so I want to make sure that in talking about crazy fun things that I'm also like representing myself well and my family and things like that other people can find. So that was a lot of the initial hesitancy. I'm still cautious about what I say. It's funny, like, we were talking about this for a minute before we recorded, but it took me a while to find my voice, and I still am.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then I'll shut up on this topic, but I liken it to kind of when you first start dating somebody. Let's say you meet someone, hey, Tinder, right? You swiped right or whatever, you go meet this person. Generally, that person you are initially is not really who you are, right? It's not like, oh, I'm Tim, but I also have GERD. I'm Tim and I've got neuroses. I'm Tim and I've got fears, right? I'm like the cool Tim that wants to present himself to you. And that is certainly there when you're now in the public eye. And I try to, as best as possible, peel that away and just be honest and be who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Because people are going to make you answer for that if you're saying that you're a certain way.
Yeah, absolutely. And so once you were ready to start making your podcast happen, what were those initial steps you took towards making this a reality?
Oh, well, I mean, I do want to say that it's a very small podcast, so I don't make money on it or anything like that. So I don't want anyone to have any, delusions about what I'm doing. I have some really exciting stuff coming up, so, there's the potential for growth, but I talked to my friends a lot, listened to a lot of podcasts, researched a ton once I started having actual guests, but folks who are more well-known. I still do that now, for when I one day meet Bourdain, because it's going to happen. I've got 3 pages already. I had Andrea Wynn, who's a cookbook writer, on the other day, and so I bought a couple of her books, or was gifted one and bought another, read through them, read her blog. Research is important, Dan, because there's so much content out there. A lot of the people that you're going to have on already have been on podcasts, so you want to make sure that you're not just regurgitating the same stuff. So a lot of research, preparation, Googling, learning about stuff, failing miserably, screwing up sound because I didn't know how to do any of it. I talk a lot on my podcast about The Wizard, who's my buddy, who's a sound engineer. So finding people who could help me. And then, just taking the plunge. I did a couple in the beginning that I never released because they were garbage. But
really? How many would you say?
I mean, a few. The very first episode, I trashed. It was I tried to edit it myself. It was so bad. I did one with Big Dog.
Who's Big Dog? For those who don't know.
Didn't release that. And someone I talk about on my podcast is my buddy Will. I threw that one out too.
So once you started doing some recording, you were doing research, how did you get your podcast from being just a seedling in your mind to now your first episode being recorded to the public?
I think you just have to do it, man. That's a silly answer, but sat down. I kind of scripted out my first story. My first story was when I went to Chiang Mai in Thailand, and my buddy and I signed up to do Muay Thai, thinking it would be like what they call like their term for a stupid white American is farang. So I thought it would be like for farangs for travelers, and you'd learn a little bit. But we get thrown in to this like gym with like dog shit everywhere. It's super dirty. It's 115 degrees. There's a little Thai guy who used to fight and a guy from France who is training to fight. And we got our asses kicked and all this crazy stuff happened. And I was like, all right, this is fun. So I thought this is something I could put out in the world that people might be interested in. So I scripted that out and recorded it and put it out. And, people responded pretty positively to it. And I just kept going from there. You just have to, it's like with you, man. You've prepared a lot, but here we are. This is you jumping in the deep end. So.
Yeah. So what I loved about that story about you going to that gym to train, at that time I was training jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai. And when you told me what you were doing in that gym, I was like, what the fuck were you thinking? Because even me training in jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai, I still probably wouldn't have been able to get through that workout.
Yeah, so it was the workout, which it was like Kickboxer 3. Like we were bouncing on tires. It was intense. But then at the end of it, the French guy was like, "Oh, I'm going to spar with him," and the trainer kept telling him, "Don't hurt him, don't hurt him." He's like, "I'm not going to hurt him," and I'm like, I just did 3 hours of combos and like, all right, I'm all right. And we're sparring, and he's starting out just defensively, and I'm like, why can't I hit this guy? I'm like, I don't understand why nothing is landing. And then like he would just throw a jab out of nowhere, and just like my head's getting knocked back like a ping pong ball. He throws a kick and stops at the last second, like right at my temple, just to show me like, hey, I could have just turned your lights out. Then he starts peppering my face, and I literally. I'm like tapping out and sparring to strikes because I'm like, I don't want to go to a Thai hospital. But yeah, I ripped all the skin off my big toe.
I was just going to ask if the balls of your feet, if the skin peeled back at all.
It was so gnarly. And I ripped the skin. Okay. They completely coated us in this like hot orange Tiger Balm. So that's making you sweat.
So wait, really quickly, for those who don't know what Tiger Balm is, could you explain that?
Yeah. What would it feel like? Maybe a more intense like Vicks Vapor Rub?
Yeah, it's like super intense. It's used for like warming up your muscles, basically.
Yeah. Loosening them, right?
Yeah.
So I was sweating like crazy from that, from the heat, from the workout. I'm a very sweaty guy anyway. So my skin was really pruny everywhere. So after everything, after sparring, he's like, yeah, I have to start doing sit-ups. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. And when I was doing sit-ups, I felt like a rip and the top of my butt crack all the way up my back made like a giant extended ass crack up my back.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was intense. So yeah, I was like, that's a crazy fun story. Like maybe people would find that funny. So that was my first one.
Yeah, I love that story. It's such a good one. Now, so your first episode is released. How excited were you to share that with others?
Yeah, really excited, nervous. Hearing your voice for the first time is really strange. I still can't listen to full episodes. So once it's done being edited, I'll listen to spots where it needed a fixing, and I'm like, oh, yep, it's good. I'll put it out. But I hate listening to myself.
I hate listening to my voice. Once I got some of this gear, I've been trying to record some music and recording me singing, and I recorded myself singing one time. I immediately stopped what I was doing, went to talk to my wife Danielle about it, and said how disgusting my voice sounded. I do not like the sound of my voice. That's something I know I'll have to get used to.
The process is humbling. I try to be pretty honest, so I'll share the fun stuff I've done, but then also like hey, I spent a week curled up in a ball in the corner of a bathroom in Thailand because I was horribly sick. Mm-hmm. And that's humbling to like,
yeah.
So
but those are those instances, those stories make for good stories after the fact, right? I feel like with those at the time they suck, but you look back at them kind of like with with a sense of happiness and a sense of joy.
Yes, there are a lot of things that in the moment are really shitty that are fun to talk about afterwards. But I try to balance what I put out there with a dose of reality. I'm not like a big party guy or something, so I'm not like sharing party stories all the time. But I'll give you a quick example. I did an episode about being in Hanoi and, drinking snake blood and eating a snake heart, which was like crazy for me, right? Wow, this crazy experience in Vietnam. And by this point, having gone there a lot, I have a lot of friends there, and none of them have done that. It's not an inherently Vietnamese thing. It's just a crazy thing you can do there. So I try to be real honest about stuff, especially now, so that people get an accurate representation of the places I'm going.
So to get back to your podcast and the process of getting it together, what would you say for you was the most exciting aspect of working on creating a podcast?
Oh, Dan, there's a lot. On a small level, you get a weird, for me at least, like a dopamine dump after I've finished creating something cool that I think is cool. So I know when a conversation hasn't gone well. I have a lot of those. I've still put them out. But you feel really good when you've just spent an hour and a half talking with an amazing person about something, and you're now going to be able to share that with people. So I always get like a dopamine dump. But then, I've had amazing people on, like a Rwandan genocide survivor, Consoline Shimwe was on, and Jeff from Modern Life is War was like, that was like the it band for me.
Dude, I was so excited with that episode. When you told me about that, I was seriously like so excited for you.
Yeah, just that. It's been so rewarding to be able to speak. This is somebody I idolized when I was younger. I'm older now, so I don't quite have idols, but I was running this morning and I was listening to My Love, My Way, and I spent so much time researching, watching videos, listening to music, reading his interviews to make something interesting. But yeah, something like that, being able to have these conversations with people I look up to greatly, is amazing, man. It's part selfish and part it's fun to share with people.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you mentioned the dopamine dump thing, because I can totally understand that. In some of my hobbies or things that I do, when you feel like you hit a home run, it's that just rush of dopamine, and it's the best feeling. And it's almost like you want to keep having that experience. And I feel like I try to liken it to chasing the dragon, right? Mm-hmm. You're never going to chase the dragon. It's always doing whatever you can to just catch the dragon, right?
Yeah, you and I have that maybe to a fault,
yes.
Where, yeah, I'm often very dissatisfied with everything
yes.
I do. Like I said, there are a number of episodes where I was just like, these are not good. Neither of us really came from this world. Obviously, so many people have podcasts now because it's sort of easy technology. But I never had any of these skills before, and a lot of the people that I'm interested in don't have them either. So if I'm talking to a fighter who generally has just fought and isn't used to presenting themselves, sometimes you get one-word answers, and that hour and a half conversation you plan gets wrapped up in an hour.
Yeah.
But I like it all.
Yeah. So yes, I think that you and I definitely share that attribute where maybe sometimes we are a little harder on ourselves than we should be. Because I get that a lot. And I do that to myself in a lot of my hobbies, where sometimes my wife, Danielle, will have to come and talk to me and just say, you need to chill out, dude. Like, you're not as bad as you think you are with some of your skills and your abilities. You're actually pretty talented, and you need to recognize that. But I feel like it's a good thing, but it can definitely be a bad thing if you allow it to be a detriment to what you're doing.
Danny's in the background right now, so that would have, if we had set this up, that would have been perfect for like a hey-o or something like that from the background. But yeah, I don't know, man. I've heard people talk about this on podcasts before. Like, is it Is it a good thing or a bad thing? Does it keep you fueled? Does it keep you going? Yeah, sure. Are you sometimes too critical for it? Yeah, I'm sure that's there too. But it's not just with podcasting. I have it with everything. And I think, at 31, it's just part of who you are at this point.
So what would you say has been one of the most difficult challenges in terms of regularly creating a podcast?
My job.
So explain that a little.
Well, for the past 4 years, I've gotten up at 5 a.m. or earlier. And I put in 11 to 12-hour days. I try to be healthy. And so I go to the gym pretty much every day, and by that time it's 8 o'clock, I'm eating dinner. And where's the time? I've worked weekends for a while. And so I did an episode with Graham Holiday, who's an author. I did that at 4 a.m. before work. Literally got up at 3 to do it. Jackson Groves I had on an hour after the Super Bowl. So you can imagine what state I was in. And it's pretty late at night. And Monday is a work day. Again, not being somebody with a following initially, I had to, and I still will cater to people, but I had to cater to people with followings, schedules, and when they could do things. So it was a challenge to navigate my own life and to do this. But I think I've been pretty disciplined in being able to do it.
Yeah. So would you say that your career or work, what you do for money, has impeded your abilities as a podcaster, or has it helped, or is it a little bit of both? Little of column A, little of column B?
Yeah, man, there's a lot of ways to approach this. Work obviously is number one. I don't get paid through the podcast. There's a lot of people that depended on me in my role, again, as essentially a school leader. And so that couldn't take second place to doing the podcast. And I also, I'm sure we'll get into this a bit. I don't want to present myself in any way as like a victim of circumstance or anything like that. Like I'm leaving the career to travel extensively now. But I don't ever want to like put out that I was in a place really where I was like, boo-hoo, woe is me. No, like I didn't like certain aspects of the lifestyle I was living, and empowered myself to consciously make a decision and to change that. So yeah, sure, it was an impediment on getting podcast episodes out regularly, and I want to regularly put out podcasts, so I'm changing my life so that I can do that.
So as an educator, do you think that that's shaped who you are as a podcaster?
These are excellent questions. That's the nature of education itself. Maybe not, Dan, but the experiences that I've had, I want to be like really kind of careful about this. I've primarily worked in areas of like low income and urban areas. A lot of children come from low income housing, and I'm not demonizing that in any way. But if you know low income housing and you know areas without a lot of money, you know that there's a lot that comes with that. And so going through those experiences, I've learned a lot. I've learned how to deal with people. I've learned how to talk to people. I'm really sorry that I answered these in a very long way, but I'm making a connection to something. When I met you, we were in high school, as we said. I think I had a very similar worldview that I had at that time, where I was sort of disillusioned with. I mean, we were fake news before fake news, right?
Yeah.
Like these are the music we were listening to, the things we would read. It was like, what you're being told is BS.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of oppression, and there's lots of things going wrong. And I think I recognized that pretty early, and it made me angry. And I was a pretty angry, angsty teenager, what are you in your 20s? Early 20s person. And I don't think I was always nice. And I think I walked around with a shield in front of me to where like, oh, I'll hurt you before you hurt me in relationships and things like that. I still think a lot of maybe the things that we saw as wrong at that time are even intensified now. But through my experiences in education and through travel, I approach it. It sounds super cheesy, man, but like I approach it now with love, not with hate. Mm-hmm. And it has completely changed my life.
It's funny, man. You know, as we talked about earlier, we've known each other since our senior year of high school. And both of us, as you mentioned earlier, we have grown tremendously during those years. But it's funny. I see the changes in you from then to now, and you definitely have much more of an air of confidence. You know, you and I think, are both pretty big introverts, but you have so much more of the ability now to be a little bit more extroverted in how you do things. And I definitely think I have to imagine that's because of your experience as an educator.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you. Being very nice. Yeah, man. Sure. As part of that, I had no confidence in late high school, early 20s, like zero. In grad school, I would take anti-anxiety medication just to get through one grad school session. But yeah, I guess, I don't know if part of it, man, is just natural. We're much older now, and it's part of maturing, but I was forced into a lot of it. You know, from, you know, just speaking in front of an auditorium to I've been fortunate enough to win a couple awards and speaking in front of large crowds for that, to like when you have to run out of your school building because some of your kids are like in a fight in the street with people you don't know, and you're running in the middle to prevent them from getting hurt.
You got to be on top of shit.
Yelling at your colleagues to go here, to yelling at the police officers come here. It's like crazy experiences.
My bad.
Yeah, I've been forced into it a lot, but I never could have done this where I'm putting myself out to the world when I was, 18, 19, 20.
Oh, I'm sure, man. I think the same could be said for me. It's funny how you had mentioned about being angry and pissed off. Dude, I was so angry and pissed off when I was that same age, late teens, early 20s. And it's kind of interesting. My musical taste at that time was very much, punk hardcore. And as I've gotten older, starting to mellow out and chill out more and not being so just listening to that type of music, I definitely think reflects that change just in me, but yeah, it's kind of crazy to see the growth, I would say, in both of us, but especially you, man. I think over the years, seeing the growth and changes in you has been really, really awesome.
Thank you. I don't think the music helped, actually. I think it provided us with a community. I mean, we both still listen to heavy music. Mm-hmm. I was saying, I was listening to Modern Life is War today. I mean, they're a little bit, their message is a little bit different. Yeah. I mean, that's we sound old as hell.
I know.
But I don't know, a lot of it reinforced like depression and things like that. Like, I didn't listen to a lot of positive stuff, and when you're already not in a positive place, to be reinforced with that, I don't think it's great for you.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because as I've gotten older, I've started to listen to definitely different genres of music, and I've gotten into more like gloom and doom. And yeah, sometimes if you're dealing with seasonal affect disorder and listening to a band like Planning for Burial has very depressing lyrics, yeah, it definitely might not be the best idea.
Yeah, and then combine that with you're someone whose hormones are raging because you're at the peak of adolescence and you don't know your place in the world and you're about to go to college and all this crazy stuff is happening and George Bush is the president and the Twin Towers have been hit and it's like, chaos. That's why I do not envy kids now.
No, seriously, man. It's funny, dude, being older, having some success in career. I think back, I remember being a senior in college, hanging out at, on campus one evening, just laying on like a grassy field with one of my friends and being terrified of the idea of I'm about to graduate and what's to come next, the idea of career and adulthood and how frightening that was at the time. And now being like, man, college sucked. Dude, being adult is so much more awesome.
Yeah. I'm like in a strange way sort of about to go through that like for a second time.
Yeah. But, I do. So I definitely want to speak about that, but a couple more things about your podcast I want to get into. So initially, right, because you were saying that you had to reach out to a lot of individuals. There's some research that goes on in making sure that you're putting out a good interview. How much time would you say in hours were you devoting towards just creating one episode?
Kind of a lot, Dan. Individual episodes, not as much, but like I was saying, there was a lot of research that goes into conversations with people who have followings. So a lot, it could be that I'm reading their book before I talk to them, researching, writing out questions. I spent a lot of time sending emails to people who didn't respond and, researching a lot of those people and getting questions ready for if they did respond. A lot of time. A lot of time goes into it now still. I
was going to ask recently, so has things been able to has this process been able to speed up for you at all?
I'm way better with the technology now. I was awful at it in the beginning. So a bit, but I still, like again, the most recent one was Andrea Wynn, and I spent a lot of time preparing for that. Maybe it's not like the sexiest profession for people who are listening, right? She's a cookbook author and cook and does cooking classes, but I admired her greatly, and I don't want to fuck this up. I want to, represent her well. So you put a lot of time into them.
It's funny that you mentioned the technology. I was so nervous coming here today that I was going to screw something up, that as sure shit something would go wrong, and you had to help me with stuff, so thank you.
And things do.
Oh, I'm sure. You mentioned this earlier, and we've talked about this, but for those that didn't catch this, who's that holy grail interview for you? Who's that one person that you so badly want to interview?
It's definitely Bourdain.
Why is that?
I think he is responsible for completely transforming food and travel for the generation that we are in. And I've been watching his content for a while. I've read his books. I've greatly looked up to him for a while. He made it seem possible that I could go to Vietnam, which was the first place I went that I thought would be, wow, this is such a crazy place. I don't know many people who have gone here. It's going to be exciting. So he made things seem possible. He broke down cultures in a way that made them interesting. He showed that food is quite political. It wasn't like a party show or something like that. And I just think I don't quite know how to put that, because I don't want to idolize people, man. Yeah. I think that's super cheesy.
He is masterful at that, at bringing in the political and socio-political, socio-economical situation of a region that he's visiting, and wrapping it around cuisine, and he does it in such a great way.
Yeah, and that show is beautiful art now, man.
Absolutely,
there's a reason why they're winning Emmys every year.
When I watch that show, I'm always blown away by the cinematography and the photography in that show. I'm always blown away by just his ability to interview someone, and it's just a conversation that he's having with an individual, and how seamless that is.
Yeah, he's masterful at it, and it's not easy. I thought it would be. That's another kind of answer to your what was difficult. Mm-hmm. I thought it would be easy to just talk, but communication is an art that I did not quite realize was an art. Yeah, he's holy grail. There's other people too that I've been trying to get that have been hard, but I'm gonna get him.
not to beat a dead horse here, but one of the other things that makes Bourdain a badass is I'm pretty sure he's a blue belt in jiu-jitsu. I think he trains with Renzo Gracie.
At 60, I believe
he's a total badass. So, which interview that you've done thus far turned out to be your favorite, or which multiple interviews?
I want to go back to how I qualified it so hard. So yes, thank you for saying multiple. But the one with Jeff from Modern Life is War was special to me. There's one that doesn't get a whole lot of listens. I almost lost the audio, but Brian was able to save it. Again, she was a Rwandan genocide survivor, Consolée Nishimwe. Mm-hmm. I had seen her speak when I took a class to see her speak a few years ago, and then I read her book. But she lives in the Bronx now, obviously survived the Rwandan genocide, and it was kind of humbling to me, and it was the first time I realized, like, oh, this is more than me just telling fun stories. I'm actually almost like journalism. And I felt silly, man. Here I am, the guy talking about drinking snake blood, and I'm sitting across the table from someone who tells me everyone in her immediate family was murdered. Her brother was thrown in the town into a public ditch for people to see, and she's not allowed to go recover him. She was raped and contracted HIV.
Oh my God.
She survived all of this, is humble and kind and beautiful, and is telling me about her faith in God. And I'm sitting across here like, who am I to even be having this conversation with you? And it was heartbreaking, man. I'm sitting there trying not to cry when she's telling me stuff. So,
oh, I'm sure
that might be the one. But again, like, I've been so happy to have Andrea, the cookbook writer, to Ramya Ramana, the 21-year-old poet activist.
Oh, dude, yeah. It's so impressive.
You know, to everybody, to Mike Green, who puts out awesome YouTube videos about cooking. I've been super lucky, but yeah, maybe Consolée was the one I think is maybe the most important.
Nice. And when you first started out, did you envision that you would be able to talk to individuals like you have? The individuals that you've talked to, did you ever envision being able to talk to such awesome, unique, and talented individuals?
Kind of, man. Kind of. Again, a lot of the people that initially said no or didn't answer or took a while to get back to me, I've been able to have on. And that's why I think now some of the more high-profile people that I want to have on, I think I'm going to get them. You know, I don't really do visualization or anything like that, but I think that maybe this is arrogant, but I think the stuff that I'm putting out is interesting. And I think that if some of the folks that I really wanted to have on that haven't answered yet heard some of the episodes, they'd be like, all right, this is the real deal. So, yeah, I think so.
Do you ever get nervous before you interview someone?
Yeah. Yeah. Initially, way more than I do now. But in all the reasons you might anyway, like, oh, this is somebody I totally respect and admire, to, wow, this is a beautiful person sitting in front of me. But yeah, I think I've put out enough stuff at this point that is sort of embarrassing and humbling that I'm not really too nervous anymore, but sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, even I've known you for 15 years, and even driving to your house today, I definitely felt a little bit of the nerves and just had to remind myself, this is my best buddy. Like, what is going to go wrong, man? This will be fine.
Yeah, man, you're also like, you're going to get judged by people on the internet one way or the other, so who cares? I think we talked about, I don't know how this happened, but I got like weird death threats.
Which is so bizarre.
I don't know why I'm getting this, but yeah, I mean, someone could leave you a comment, this podcast sucks. Someone could leave a review or whatever, man, who cares?
So you have to have a little bit of a thick skin then in doing this.
I guess, right? But it's sort of how you should, I think, carry yourself in your life anyway. whatever. People are going to think what they want to think. And as long as you're happy and proud of it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point that you make. I think just in terms of creating anything, there's some vulnerability that goes into creating something and putting it out there for people to consume, digest, and to comment on. You know, for me, with my photography, I was extremely nervous about putting stuff onto social media that I was creating, and then just realizing, whatever, man, this is what I'm putting out there, and some people are going to dislike it, some people will like it, but I'd rather put it out there and use this as a tool to help myself improve.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, man, like I try really hard to put out an accurate representation of who I am. Mm-hmm. I've had guests on my podcast, and we've talked about how your Instagram photo is a second from your life. Mm-hmm. And it might look like you're crazy and wild and do all this stuff when really that was like a minute of your day, and that's not how the rest of your day went. So, you know, I'm never trying to be cool, I guess. So I don't really care what people say if they say it negative.
Yeah. And so how do you keep yourself motivated? Because you've put out, what, 55 episodes at this point?
Yeah, Andrea was 56.
So how do you keep yourself motivated to make good content, to make sure that you're putting out stuff that you are proud of?
I'm curious and interested in things, man. It's the same as you. Like, you listen to a lot of music and read a lot of books and want to meet interesting people. And it's things I want to do with my life anyway. These are people I want to talk to anyway. I guess I don't know. Again, it sounds arrogant saying something, but I guess I'm just like, I'm not boring. I like doing things, and you know, so I'll read a new book and I'll be like, man, I want to talk to that author about this book. And now this is a way I can make that happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the motivation is just, it might be tied to your goal too. Mm-hmm. Like, if the motivation is to make tons of money off of this, then I've failed. But no, the goal has always been to travel and talk to interesting people. Have you set goals for yourself and for your podcast? In terms of money or listens, or
just, I guess, whatever goals, listens, I would imagine would be something you've thought about. No?
In the very beginning I did, man. And then like I had, you see like my bookcase over here, I had goals up there. Like, I want this many listens like per month or something. I've thrown that out. Really the goal is, did I represent the person well? Was this something I'm proud of putting out? The person's interesting. Really, the goals for me are specific to the people. Like, my goal is to have this person on the podcast, and so I've been quite successful at that. Again, money or the volume of listens wouldn't be successful. The scope has been quite good though, in terms of how many countries have listened.
Yeah, I think goal setting, I think, is so important, but I think because I have had to, this is something that I've struggled with in the past with my photographies. I think we live in social media is so predominant in most of our lives, and we can get caught up in, number of likes and number of followers. And I think if you start to get caught up in those numbers, that's when things could start to lead to unhealthy thoughts or doing things that maybe you aren't so happy with. And so for me, one of the things that I've tried to focus on is what I'm creating. Am I meeting and or exceeding what I'm trying to create? And am I happy with what I'm trying to produce? Because if I am, then, even if it takes 15, 20 years to maybe get to a following that would be sweet to have, awesome. But if it doesn't happen, at least I'm happy with what I'm creating. And if some people along the way enjoy it, then that's awesome too. That's just the cherry on top of the sundae.
Yeah, because the goal is important, but also, why is that the goal? If you're like, I want 10,000 listens per episode, well, why? If an advertiser tells you you have to have 20,000 listens per episode to get our advertisement or our money or endorsement or whatever, then okay, cool, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But that hasn't been what I've been trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Now, most recent podcast you've listened to?
I listened to Kill Tony this morning. Are you familiar?
No, I've never listened to that before.
Tony Hinchcliffe is a comedian. It's based out of LA. It's once a week at the Comedy Store. And he has different comedians on with him each week. And then they have people who sign up. So mostly amateur folks, and they'll go on stage and they'll do a minute, and it's a hard end to the minute. And some of them are good and some of them are garbage. And then the panel of comedians like kind of rips them, roasts them, and gives them feedback. It's freaking awesome. It's a lot of fun.
And what did you say it was called?
Kill Tony.
Kill Tony.
It's quite big. But yeah, that's a fun one.
Do you have any one podcast that you say is your favorite, or one that you listen to religiously?
That's hard. I like Tangentially Speaking with Chris Ryan. I like Radiolab, Mixed Mental Arts. Hardcore History is really cool with Dan Carlin. I mean, these are all, I don't think I'm breaking any news here. Yeah, those.
Nice. So we talked about travel a little bit, and I kept trying to pump the brakes there. But so you've done some pretty awesome traveling in the past, and I would say more so than I've done. And you've got some plans for the future, but could you talk about some of the places that you've traveled to thus far?
Oh yeah, man. What
are some of the places that you've gone to?
All right, yeah. So again, like this is going back to like where we're like never satisfied. I don't even think I've traveled enough. But it's interesting because again, with blogging and stuff, you'll look at people. I've been to 50 countries. So, okay, but have you spent meaningful time there? So Southeast Asia is easy. It's an easy start. But I definitely fell in love with Vietnam. So I've gone back there 3 years in a row just because I love it and I've made some great connections there. Vietnam was interesting because I always struggle to frame this correctly, but I've always been interested in traveling. It was not a priority for my family when we were young because it just did not make sense economically. We couldn't afford it. So, I'd get lost in these kind of caricatures of adventure and heroes and stuff like Indiana Jones. And I used to, like when I was very young, I would read those illustrated classics, right? Like Around the World in 80 Days. And this is awesome. But it was never quite real. And I went to Europe, but really, what was I guess like 25, 26 when I went to Southeast Asia for the first time. And Vietnam was always the place.
And did you go to Southeast Asia alone or with someone else?
No, I've gone with friends. Now I have friends there. But each time I've spent time alone. But I did have people along the way and initially. But yeah, Vietnam was a place where it was like, what I know of Vietnam is from high school, right? And like the war, it's what you think of. But again, like someone like Bourdain or people that put out content that, wow, like this is amazing and beautiful. And I really love the food. And it's been incredible. It's a really broad question, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
I've been to Kenya, Egypt, all over Southeast Asia, and now I have pretty much everywhere coming up.
So, all right. So then let me ask you this. What would you say have been 3 favorite places you've gone to? Cities, countries, whatever.
Oh, yeah. I've really liked everything. Oh, I guess I'd have to say Vietnam, man, because I keep going back. Indonesia this past year was really special to me. Both of those places, because of connections I've made. I'll say Kenya. I want to go back to Africa so bad, and I'm going to try to do a lot more of East Africa coming up. Mm-hmm. But it's funny when you go places, man, like your perception of what they were gets stripped away immediately. I don't want to make it seem like the world doesn't have danger and bad things can happen, but you're coming from a suburban upbringing in the United States, your perception of Africa is a scary place and, disease and in terms of malaria and things like that, which, yes, people get it. But even where I was in Kenya was like fortified because we were staying with folks that work for the UN, but an amazing place with beautiful people who are nothing but hospitable. And I had some incredible experiences there. So it's shaken up my perception of things for sure.
It's crazy our perceptions of regions or cities, countries, and how we might think that they are more dangerous than they are. I think even in America, right? You see on the news stuff happening in larger cities. And I remember when Danielle and I have traveled, driving through Wyoming and the Dakotas, those are really wide open states. And there is, I mean, you could drive for miles and miles and miles on end until you see another person or a house. And I could understand being in those states and seeing on the news, the nightly news, man, shit's going down in certain urban areas, thinking, yeah, this country's going to hell. Where, I mean, you live in New York City. I mean, yeah, bad stuff happens, but for the most part, right, you're pretty safe and things don't happen to you.
Yeah, and those things that used to happen over there, right, in other places, like there's just a bus attack in Toronto, or a van attack in Toronto. On a tiny micro level, I took all my podcasting stuff around Southeast Asia for a month last summer. Nothing got taken, nothing got stolen. Earlier this month, I went to LA and the baggage handlers stole my mic cord. What the hell are you going to do with this? But yeah, I mean, things can happen anywhere. You have to.
Didn't they take your shorts too?
Yeah, man. They took my gym shorts. They took
your gym shorts that you did not wash, correct?
I was in a rush. Yeah. But yeah, things can happen anywhere. You have to be smart. You have to be aware, and you'll be fine.
This is a very broad question. I know that, and I think this would be something that would be a little tough for me to answer, but I'm going to ask you anyway. How would you say travel has affected you? Yeah, I know. That's a tough one. I know.
Okay. So we talked a little bit about confidence, right? So it's given me confidence. Yes, I have been in hairy situations. Yes, I have had to figure out things. I've been in areas where we didn't have a common language. It's definitely it's definitely made me softer, I think, not in a like manly or soft sense, but like approach situations more softly. You even see this here in New York, right? If someone bumps you and someone's like, well, what the hell, man? When you're in another place, like, so I've heard crazy stories about Thailand where if you fight one Thai guy, you're fighting every Thai guy in the area. So you can't afford that somewhere else. So situations, if I step on, this is silly, if I bump someone or step someone's foot, oh, my fault, I'm very sorry, that was not my intent. Which I do hear now too, because people are quite trigger happy in New York, metaphorically, but so I approach situations more softly. It's made me try to be responsible in situations. We talked to I consider me and Brian a we, but I had oh wow, Dan, help me. Vagabonding. I had Rolf Potts on my podcast. Sorry. And I talked a little bit with him about like Westerners going into places and what they kind of represent. So a lot of white men Kiwis from New Zealand, Aussies from Australia, obviously, and then Europeans and Americans go to Southeast Asia. And relationships with Southeast Asian women take many forms. There are situations in which there's like the exchange of money for sex. There is actual consensual adult sexual relationships. In Vietnam, there's a very strange setup where men are called daddies, and they literally take like a fatherly role with women. Yeah, I don't mean sugar daddy. I know that
that's what I was thinking you were going to say.
But more of like hey, I'll help make sure your employment's okay. I'll give you advice.
And it's not sexual?
I don't know. I do have a friend who has a relationship with someone like that, and it hasn't been. I'm sure there's nuances to everything. I'm sure there's situations where it has been. But this is a long way of saying, like, be responsible in how you act with people. if you are becoming involved with someone, you represent probably social advancement. You might represent a better economic opportunity. You might represent love and know that you're just going to be in a place for 3 weeks or something. So the relationships you have with people, the way you treat people, you need to be really responsible for. I won't say what group of people this was, but there's a group of people in Africa. They say like people from this country are the worst. And it's because when they drive around in safari, they throw their plastic bottles out the window.
Oh, God.
And so I feel like you need to be responsible and understand a culture and a people. So there's so many ways to answer this, Dan.
So have you experienced that, understanding the nuances of you as a traveler and a visitor into a region and maybe not necessarily understanding that initially?
Oh, yeah. That humbles you too. I try to do my best and read about places before I go and understand customs and things like that. I'm trying to think specifically. There are things where you don't want to make someone feel bad. When I always get my vaccinations, but when I was in Kenya, I don't know if you want me to go into the whole story later, but I was being tended to because I had hurt myself, and it was interesting because there weren't a whole lot of white folks there, and it grew a crowd. And so a crowd of people were like watching me as someone was like,
what happened? Could you, I know the story, but could you explain for those who did not listen to this episode, what happened?
And don't let me forget to tie it back to your question. I know I'm very long-winded. We went to Diani Beach, which is in the south. It's coastal. It's above Mombasa. And I think, again, people's perceptions of Africa, they don't think beach, but Africa has some of the most amazing, incredible beaches in the world. And it's white sand beaches, crystal clear water, and not a ton of development. So not like loud booming parties all night long. You can be left to your own devices if that's what you want. I was with two friends, and it was a low tide, and I was like, this is beautiful. And I'm running like Braveheart out into the water, like, yes. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh shit. I think I just stepped on a shell or something. I sliced my foot. But I could feel stuff dangling off the bottom of my foot. And I thought my skin was shredded. And my buddy who lives there is on the beach. He's Italian, and he's like, oh, watch out for the sea urchin. I don't know why it sounds like Count Chocula. But I'm like, God damn it, man. Like, why wouldn't you tell me that before I ran out there? And my friend Caroline comes over. She's letting me lean on her. And I limp back to shore, and I've got all these quills dangling out of my foot.
Oh, my God.
I stepped on an urchin. It doesn't feel good. It's a long story, but so I go up to the shore, and there's a dive shop, and there's a guy there, and he's like, oh, I can help. And he goes over to a tree. He goes over to a tree, and he pulls a thorn off the tree. And he starts digging into these holes to pull the quills out. And I'm screaming.
I was going to say, how bad was that?
It was not good, man. You know how tender the bottom of your foot is. And it wasn't working. So he's like, go back and get aloe and bring it to me. So he cuts off a aloe from an aloe branch or whatever. It's the leaf, I guess. And he's rubbing it on my foot. He's like, yeah, this will help it pull out in a couple of days. I had already recorded a podcast episode with my buddy Kevin, who had stepped on an urchin in Jamaica, and it's poisonous there. I didn't know they weren't poisonous in Kenya, but I was worried about infection. People were telling me, don't go to the hospital, they're going to butcher your foot. And I'm like, what? So I'm like, these have to come out. So a woman comes over, and she's talking to me, and we're talking for a while, and eventually she knows someone who's like, oh, I'm a nurse. Go get a needle. I'll be able to get a needle and alcohol. Go back to my hotel.
And the quills are still in your foot at this point?
Still in my foot, yeah.
How big were they?
They're long, man, but so they all start breaking. So they all break at the surface. They're quite fragile.
But it's still stuck into your foot.
Yeah, they're deep. I put all the weight down on it.
Oh
so
my God,
they break at the surface, and now initially it was like 12. When I came home later, there were more. It was like 15. And so now they're I can see they're all like in my foot. I'm like, this is not good. So they flatten out a fishing hook.
Oh my God.
Okay? They dip it in alcohol, and they bring it to the woman who tells me she's a nurse. It It was excruciating. She's digging and pulling them out. They're laughing at me. Oh, they're calling me. You're a woman. You're a woman. I know, we're more sensitive here maybe with that stuff, but it's silly to be an effeminate man there. And but come on, man, you're digging into my foot with a fish hook. I asked.
Did they sterilize the fish hook beforehand?
They put alcohol on it. I think they burned it too with a lighter. So I gave one of the woman's daughters money to go give them some juices. The kids get juice and they bring me beers. So I'm drinking beer, holding onto a pole. Little kids are playing with my leg hairs because they don't have a lot of body hair, and I've got these hairy blonde leg hairs, and they're pawing at it and they're laughing at me and stuff. And it was crazy. But to bring it back to that question, she got them all out. And she then told me, no, I'm not actually a nurse. But
oh my God.
Yeah. But one of the people there had like given me their child to hold, and he had scabs all over him. So I'm like, oh, what happened to him? He's like, chicken pox or something. She's like, oh, he's got measles.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But I can't be like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, right. It's okay. I've had my shot. I'm probably going to be fine. This is different. I don't want to embarrass her. These are people that are being very kind to me, and I don't want to be that loud, freaked out American. So thank you. Here's your son. We can continue to talk, but yeah, so I want to make sure I'm traveling responsibly. It's maybe unsexy as that sounds.
Yeah. So I'm assuming I know the answer to this question, but the more you do it, right, the more you experience it, the more you kind of pick up on that stuff, and the more it becomes easier, I guess.
Yeah, sure. There's situational awareness too. Like, there are people that are going to try to rip you off. There might be people that try to harm you. That's possible. Yeah, it takes a little bit of time in a new place to really get a good grasp of the money, especially when you're going from country to country and the conversion rate's different. So that's something. Basic communication is something, and then like the nuances of that culture, but you do pick it up quick.
Yeah. So we talked about you getting your mic cords and your gym shorts stolen, and that was in a recent episode that you talked about this when you and your boy Willie B went out to California. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting in that episode is that you talked about social media, and you talked about the ease of traveling today and how that has affected travel or changed travel to some degree. So how do you feel the internet and social media are affecting travel, especially in terms of places that maybe might have been hidden gems before the advent of Instagram?
In some ways, it's great because you can learn a lot more before you go somewhere. You can get advice. You can find cool places to go. In some ways, it's awful. There, like, every city has like its backpacker party holiday area. So Australia is quite close to Southeast Asia, and their winter is our summer. So I've primarily traveled over summers, and so there's a lot of young people partying. So Bangkok has Khao San Road, Ho Chi Minh City has Bui Vien, and these are just like places where people are just getting trashed, doing bar crawls, and it's like, what are you actually seeing? I try not to judge it too much because, hey man, these are 18-year-olds doing 18-year-old things. But yeah, that's not you seeing the country. It has definitely changed places. So now in Ho Chi Minh City, the places of Bourdain's gone. It's like, hey, this place was on Bourdain, and now there's crazy long lines. Which, yeah, that's great for the business owner, right? I talk about this all the time. I recommend if people are going to check out my podcast to check out When in Phnom Penh with Kai Kunila, because I had her on the podcast and we talked about how things are changing. So now there's McDonald's in Hanoi, or in Phnom Penh they have Starbucks and multinational corporations and things like that, or companies. And she was saying that's good because it's going to bring in investment and money, and it shows that city is economically viable on a global scale. And I can't tell her she's wrong. She's from there. She knows way more than me. selfishly, you want places to remain, like, air quotes, pure and fun and exciting. I actually think someone who maybe supports this was Andrea, who I just had, because I think she was in agreement that maybe it would hurt, like, the country's getting money through tourism, but if it's starting to be homogenized and look like any other city, then it might lose the tourism. And she also made the great point that now Ho Chi Minh City is going to have this high-speed rail, but when your sewage and your plumbing system sucks, okay, like, maybe you should get to those, basic human needs before you get this high-speed rail.
Yeah.
So
I feel like it's a catch-22, right? It's like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, because, I mean, I could, one example that I can bring up is when Danielle and I were in Yosemite this past fall, we wanted to see Glacier Point because that's a place I've seen tons of photographers take images of, and it's fucking beautiful. And now the caveat to this is that that area of the park had some fires during the time that we were there, so it was closed off to the public. And then we were fortunate enough that one of the last days that we were staying in the park, they opened up that area. But we went out there, and dude, it was jam-packed with people. We had to basically wait to be able to go to the edge of, the enclosed area to just get out there, and for me to snap a couple of photos of the valley, and then take some some selfies with Danielle. But I mean, you have to think that obviously Yosemite is such a big park and there's so many people that are coming there, but you have to imagine that Instagram, social media has that effect where those spots now become must-see areas for people.
Yeah, that is a very, very good point, Dan. And yes, I've experienced that a lot. Yeah, when you go anywhere, like, the cool thing in that area, there's generally lines now to take pictures. I'm not a photographer. I take far less pictures than I maybe should, or maybe even sometimes want to. I keep an Instagram basically for the podcast. So it's weird, man. Like, I want to get that cool memory. I want to have that picture of that place, but it definitely detracts from it when you have tons of chattering people standing in line for a place. I don't know if that ever changes. I think some of these things are just, everything's always evolving, and we're living through an evolution right now.
Yeah, I can't imagine at this point that we're going to turn back the tide and go backwards, right? I feel like it's just going to continue to evolve.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I want to just tell people, take the picture and then put it away and sit here and enjoy it.
Yeah.
That's generally what I try to do. As part of that episode you mentioned, we went to Salvation Mountain, and there were Instagram models, right? Who literally, like, in front of us got into, like, bikinis. One of them had these bubbles and was blowing bubbles for the picture. And I'm just thinking, like, I don't think that this was what this was made for. And it's weird, but at the same time, man, I don't know. Who am I to say, don't go follow your dream?
Absolutely. I tried to, with photography, there's all the, you want to get a technically sound shot. You want to shoot at certain parts of the day. And, for me, man, Danielle and I, we like to go hiking, and we like to go on long hikes that are strenuous. And, sometimes we might get to the end of the hike at 12 o'clock in the afternoon or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which might not be the best time to take photos, but you got to take the shot that you can get. But one of the things that we always do is and Danielle sometimes wants to jack me up. I'll take my photos. We'll do our thing, and then we just sit there, man, and we just take in the moment. I always want to just sit there and take in the moment and just experience that area and that spot as much as I can. Just take in the noise and the breeze that I feel. Because man, that's what it's about, right? Those images are great, and I love having those mementos and those photos. But at the end of the day, I'm there to experience those holy moments, those moments that I don't get to experience at home.
Yeah, totally. I mean, what can I say that you didn't just say and better than I could, Dan? I think when I was with Will Willoughby, and I remember when we were at Horseshoe Bend, I actually left my camera there. But yeah, like we took a bunch of pictures, and then we sat there for like 2 hours just watching it as the sun set. And after a while, just started having a conversation like we're having now, like talking about life. And it's like,
and those always wind up being like some of the best experiences and the best moments.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And that's why part of like the solo travel is really nice. But part of that is meeting people. Some of the best moments are meeting people and sharing your life and having great conversations.
Mm-hmm. So these next questions are just going to be quick fire questions.
Sure.
So first thing that pops into your head, go with your gut. You can hop on a plane right now. Where are you going?
Okay. So this might actually also be real, but I want to go to the Philippines. There is a 102-year-old Kalinga tattoo artist who's like the last of her kind. And I would like to go see her before she passes.
When are we getting matching tattoos, dude?
I don't know. You don't have much space left on your body.
I have plenty of space.
Okay.
Space is not an issue. You tell me when we're doing it, and we're doing it. All right. Favorite meal you've had while traveling?
Oh my gosh, dude. You want quick answers, and I am very bad at quick answers. All right, it's the most recent, so I'll say favorite most recent one. I was in Jogja in Yogyakarta, Indonesia. I was by myself. Chitra had flown to Bali. I was going to go see her the next day. I went out at night to Malioboro Street, and there were all these people sitting down, no shoes, at these low tables on the ground, and they had like jackfruit, and you could get like sparrow there. I got like whole crabs, chicken, and I'm sitting by myself eating, and there's a gentleman on the street who looked like he was on hard times, and he just came and he sat and he talked to me, and he was talking to me about Indonesia, and I'm sitting there with a stranger watching the people pass, no shoes, good food, cold beer, and that's happened over and over, but that type of experience is the best.
That's awesome. And most influential person for you?
Oh man, in what regards?
Let's say in regards to your podcast.
Oh lordy, do you mind if I list a couple of people?
Yeah, absolutely, man.
It's so cheesy, man. But I think Joe Rogan kind of showed people that it's possible to do podcasting. So him again, Bourdain. Brian has been a massive help and has been by my side the whole time. Same with Kevin. My dad has been really cool. Like it's the same with you, but it's trippy when your dad's calling you up like, hey man, like this was really cool about this episode. And he always loves when he gets a shout out and stuff like that. So he'll probably listen to yours. So, hey dad.
Dude, I totally get a little giddy when you give me a shout out on your episodes.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, and then just, every single person I meet and talk to on the podcast inspires me to like get back to the next one. So,
yeah. And most recent album you've listened to?
Well, I guess it'd have to be right here. We were just listening to some Lucero. What about something new? We were talking about Julian Baker before. I keep listening to this. She does this Mountain Goats cover. Oh my God, what is the name of the song? We'll get back to that.
Okay.
But on her most recent tour, she does this Mountain Goats cover that's like haunting and beautiful, and I just keep listening to that on repeat.
Nice. Most recent movie you watched?
I saw A Quiet Place.
How was it?
A week ago.
I haven't seen it yet.
I don't know, man.
Is the hype real?
No. Everyone was like, oh, this is groundbreaking and amazing. No. Yo, MoviePass is groundbreaking.
Dude, MoviePass is groundbreaking. I have MoviePass. Although they're probably going to be limiting it to 4 a month. Yeah, which is still a good deal.
But who's making money off of that?
Well, they're losing a bunch of money. They're hemorrhaging money, which is why they are no longer allowing people to see one movie a day.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Most recent book you've read?
Oh, good God. What did I just finish? I read oh gosh, I don't want to screw up her name. I read Vagabonding by Rolf Potts. Not Vagabonding. I read Souvenir by Rolf Potts. Oh God, please don't screw up your name. Kwekwe Emezi wrote Freshwater. I've been trying so hard to get her on. That was incredible. So Freshwater.
Nice. And if you can give one book, only one book, as a gift for the rest of your life, which book would it be?
God damn, dude.
I had difficulty with this question when I was coming it up because I started thinking about what I would give.
It's gonna sound like I'm copying folks, but and this is like sparking my another like influence, and The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield is huge in terms of motivating folks to get over what he calls resistance and make things happen. And was recommended to me through like tons of podcasts that I listened to, and was really a strong influence on me getting this started too. And I hadn't thought of that before.
Yeah, like I said, I was thinking about that, and that was a tough one for me. I think Vagabonding by Rolf Potts that book was so impactful for me. The other book that kept coming to mind was Ishmael, and I'm totally drawing a blank on the author right now.
It's Daniel Quinn, I think.
Thank you very much. And yeah, that book was very impactful for me as well. So those would be the two that I probably would have to think a little bit more deeply about. So a friend from out of town visits you, and you could only take them to one place in New York City. Where are you taking them?
Oh, for food?
Yeah, for food.
Oh, I'm going to cheat. Oh, good Lord, dude. That's not possible. All right, I'm going to hack the question and give you like an area instead of a specific place. Either 8th Avenue right here in South Brooklyn, which is like Brooklyn's Chinatown, or what I've been covering a lot recently is a section of Queens that stretches like Jackson Heights, Elmhurst, Flushing for food from Asia. And it is insane, from food from like Burmese to Nepalese to Korean, just incredible stuff. It's funny because I did an episode about Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, and I'm like, wow, it's so diverse here. There's people from all over. It's like, dude, you live in New York City. Like, you have people from the source, like from those countries that are reproducing that here. Those two areas are phenomenal.
Nice. Last time you drank a Colt 45.
That's also where we'll be going today. A Colt 45? What the hell, dude?
Do you know why I asked that question?
Oh, man, I'm embarrassed. I don't really want to talk about this.
So last time you drank a Colt 45?
Yeah, high school.
Oh, really? You don't recall our college days?
Oh, my God.
Dude, we would drink Colt 45s because we would get whoever to buy us a Colt 45.
Oh, God, I hope you're censoring this. Yes, you're right. Yeah, yes, wait a second. Yeah.
And we would get drunk. Yes.
Yeah.
And then we would go in the hallway of our dorm, and we would just have a catch with like a football or with our baseball gloves.
Yeah, I remember the snowstorms and everything. Yeah. Okay. But, so definitely pre-21 though.
Yes, because we would get TYM's older brother, or that, I can't remember her name.
It was the best bang for your buck. Her name was Alicia.
Thank you. Who would get us stuff? Yeah.
Yeah. Good God.
So,
you got a weird memory, man.
I do. Do all the times I kicked your ass in GoldenEye still haunt your dreams?
Why are you talking trash, man? Did you ever beat me?
All the time, dude. Once I got those proximity mines, you were done.
You're a cheater. I used to like playing. I never really had video games besides that, but you had Battlefront.
Oh, Star Wars.
Yes,
dude, that game was incredible.
Yes,
that game was so good.
I think there was 1 and 2, and Killzone. I used to
Killzone. Yeah, Killzone was great.
You would light me up in those games.
You could have any meal in the world right now. What meal would that be?
Nasi lemak. Nasi lemak is Malaysian. Nasi is rice. Wow, very exotic. You get rice. You get this kind of like stewed, curried, fall off the bone chicken. You get pickled vegetables, like crunchy anchovies. The vegetables are a little bit sweet, so you have all these crazy textures. Malaysian food culture is crazy because their malls have amazing food. And not like food malls, like shopping malls have incredible, fresh, made daily, made by hand, well prepared, lots of love put into the food in there. It's a weird culture. But you can also get some great nasi lemak here on 8th Ave. So that, I freaking love that stuff.
Awesome. Define what success looks like for you and your podcast.
Oh, man. Why you got to do these things? I think it's successful, man. Like we've said this a bunch now, but it's like I wanted to have conversations with people I look up to, and that is what I'm doing. And people that are interesting, and I want to put out things to the world that I can be proud of, and I've been doing that. Would I love to be making money off of it, and then that could sustain travel and experiences? Yes, 100%. I just started a Patreon, and maybe, but it's not the thing to me that makes or breaks it. Really, it's the conversation. So I've been successful, I think.
I would say that your podcast is successful too, man.
Well, thank you, buddy.
I think your podcast is in a really good spot. But most importantly, last question here. Last quick-fire question. Are the Yankees winning the World Series this year?
The only way the Yankees are winning the World Series is if they get rid of Aaron Boone and they hire A-Rod. I don't understand why. Like, I don't know. I know I sound like I'm joking. I'm not joking. I don't see what's wrong with it. And everyone's like, ha, 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 ha.
Well, dude, I was hoping that A-Rod was going to be in serious consideration, but he said he didn't want to do it.
There's still time. Listen. He loves the game. He speaks Spanish. Young Spanish-speaking players always loved him. He's on steroids, and come on, it makes you better. He's dating J-Lo. He's hilarious. It would be some good fodder for New York press. I don't like Aaron Boone, but yeah, they're going to win the World Series.
I think they're going to win the World Series too. It's kind of, A-Rod's the brand of A-Rod. It's so funny how he was fucking despised when he was playing, and now everyone seems to love him.
Yeah, I don't understand vitriol, man. Even like people got angry. I don't even remember like the thing where they would bring like a blow up doll. Like he dated some blonde.
Oh yeah, in Toronto they would do that.
He cheated or something, right?
Yeah, he cheated on his wife. I think it was.
Like, why do we care?
I know, right? Who gives a shit?
I'm not defending Trump, dude, but like, why do people watch the news and care about him and Stormy Daniels? It's like there are many things to care about with this man.
Other than that, right?
Why do we care? So
we could delve. I mean, that's such like a complex thing, right? We could delve into the rabbit hole with that.
I love A-Rod.
Purple nips, bro.
And his purple lip gloss. Like, he was a caricature. He would get foundation put on before games.
He was ridiculous. But yeah, I wished that he would have been at least a part of their coaching staff to some degree. I got to tell you, man, I'm feeling really good about this team. I think they're going to get a pitcher at the trade deadline, and they're going to be nasty as hell. All right, man. So I guess after today, where could people find you on your social media? How can people listen to your podcast? So first of all, thank you, man. You did a great job, dude. Thank you so much.
This is cool. I love that we're kind of forming a network here.
Hell yeah.
I love getting emails, so you can email me at thevoyagesoftimvedder@gmail.com. Tell me what's cool about where you live. We alluded to it, but I'm leaving my career and I'm going to travel. So if you're somewhere cool, tell me about it. What should I see? If you want to hang out, tell me about it. You can find me on Instagram at thevoyagesoftimv. patreon.com/thevoyagesoftimvedder. I don't really get on Twitter. There's really no Facebook. So Instagram is the best, and email.
Sweet. Thank you so much, Tim. For everyone that's listening, I'm sure there's going to be a slew of people right out of the gate listening to this, but for all of you that are, get out there.
50 million strong, baby.
Get out there, create something cool, and I'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
And there you have it, folks. My conversation with Tim Vedder from the Voyages of Tim Vedder podcast. He's a goofy son of a bitch. Love the guy. Sure knows how to sling a quality podcast episode. Follow him on social media. I will have links to his social media in the show notes. Definitely want to be following him. Tim will be leaving the country as of July 1st to travel the world. He's going to be traveling throughout Southeast Asia and other parts of the world. So don't miss out on that. Tune into his show. As I said, it's a good one. So definitely be giving it a listen. You could also find Create and Destroy on social media. You can follow the show on Instagram, Tumblr, and on Facebook at Create and Destroy Podcast, as well as on Twitter at CreateDestroy_. Lastly, I do sadly want to address the recent passing of Anthony Bourdain. I rarely, if ever, am affected by the passing of a celebrity, but this one definitely hit home for me. As you heard in my discussion with Tim, Anthony Bourdain was someone that both of us found inspiration and motivation from, and someone that we both admired. Bourdain was such a talented individual and really affected the lives of a tremendous number of individuals in a very positive way. He will be sadly missed, and it really sucks to know that that he's no longer with us. You know, take the time to reach out to your loved ones, give them a hug, tell them that you love them and you care about them. If you feel that someone you know isn't doing so well, reach out to them and ask them how they're doing. Talk to them, because sometimes they may not want to talk about what's going on with them, but maybe just broaching that topic with them will help them at least a little bit. So let the people that you care about know you love them. So with that said, guys, get out there, create something cool. I will see you next time.